Spain's socialist government has secured the presidency parliament after gaining support of Catalan nationalist parties.
Ukraine's foreign minister vows to liberate the whole country no matter how long it takes, saying they're preparing for a long war.
Giorgia Meloni's right-wing government is facing its first real test as thousands of migrants continue to arrive at Italian shores.
In its biggest military deal ever, Israel has been given permission by co-developer the United States to sell its missile defense system to Germany.
Spain's newly elected parliament has voted by a majority to elect a socialist candidate as chamber speaker, breathing some life into acting socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez's aspirations of forming another leftist government.
El resultado de la votación ha sido el siguiente. Votos emitidos 350. 178 a favor de doña Francina Armengol.
The candidate got the full support of left-wing parties and nationalists, including Junts. In exchange for Junts support, the socialists promised to promote co-official languages in Congress, an investigation into the Pegasus case, and measures to, quote, end the repression when it comes to the illegal referendum in Catalonia. At last month's general election, no political group had an easy path to form a government. Left and right-wing parties had almost the same number of seats and will therefore also need support from other parties.
Intense fighting continues along the front line in Ukraine. The country's foreign minister has admitted that the counter-offensive is progressing more slowly than expected, and fatigue is setting in. But, says Dmytro Kuleba, the stakes are too high to allow this to impact decisions, and Ukrainians are preparing for a long battle.
Але наша мета – це перемога. Перемога у вигляді звільнення наших територій в межах кордонів 91-го року. І нам байдуже, скільки часу це займе. До тих пір, поки український народ буде поділяти цю ціль, українська влада буде рухатися нога в ногу зі своїм народом.
After years of neglect, Kyiv has launched a diplomatic operation in Africa in the hope of gaining its support in the face of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It wants to reduce Moscow's hold on the continent, which he says is based on coercion, corruption and fear. Kuleba says he doesn't feel pressure from Western allies to speed up its counteroffensive. While the West has already sent Kyiv weapons worth tens of billions of euros, he stressed the need for more.
Ukrainian forces continued counteroffensive operations in western Zaporizhzhia region and have advanced east of Robotyne, says the Institute for the Study of War in its latest update. Now let's focus on this specific area today. Now the think tank refers to the geolocated footage which indicates that Ukrainian forces have advanced northeast of Robotyne. Here it is on the map, and have likely made wider gains in the surrounding areas given weeks of consistent Ukrainian activity in the forested areas northeast of the settlement here. Now, Russian bloggers claim that small Ukrainian infantry groups with armored vehicle support continued assaults north and northeast of Robotyne and in the direction of Verbove here, adding that Ukrainian vehicles can move more freely in the area due to the Ukrainian forces clearing minefields. Robotyne lies about 10 kilometers south from Orikhiv, here it is on the map, and about 80 kilometers from Melitopol, the city that Russian troops are using as a major logistics hub for occupied territories in the south of Ukraine. Russian sources claim that Ukrainian forces have committed, quote, their main reserves to the counteroffensive operations here in western Zaporizhzhia region based on scattered observations of Western-equipped Ukrainian units. But the Institute for the Study of War says Russian sources appear to be incorrectly portraying Ukrainian reserves as one large unitary contingent that Ukraine could commit to fighting as a whole. A few days ago, the US-based think tank said Ukrainian counteroffensive operations appear to be forcing Russian military to laterally redeploy Russian forces in western Zaporizhzhia region, indicating that the Ukrainian effort there may be significantly degrading Russian defenses.
The Arrow 3 missile defense system. Jointly developed with the United States, Washington on Thursday gave Israel the green light to sell the hypersonic system to Germany in a deal worth €3.2 billion. Arrow 3 is an interceptor designed to shoot down ballistic missiles outside the Earth's atmosphere. The defense sale, Israel's biggest ever, comes as European nations build up their arms in response to Russia's war in Ukraine.
אישור המכירה של מערכת ח'-3 שניתן על ידי האמריקאים הוא דבר משמעותי מאוד בדרך למימוש העסקה בין ישראל לבין גרמניה. מערכת ח'-3 היא המערכת המתקדמת מסוגה בעולם, פיתוח משותף של ישראל ושל ארצות הברית, והמערכת הזאת בעזרתנו תיתן הגנה לגרמניה. אנחנו מאוד גאים בכך.
The final contract for the deal is expected to be signed by the end of this year, following approval by both the German and Israeli parliaments. Berlin expects the Arrow 3 system to be delivered in the final quarter of 2025.
Azerbaijan claims a mass grave has been discovered in the compound of a prison that was controlled by Armenians from 1992 to 2020. Officials from Azerbaijan say the remains of 17 people have been found with evidence of torture on their bodies. The jail's called Shusha by Azeris and Shushi by Armenians and was originally built in Soviet times. Armenian authorities have not commented on the claim. Euronews was given permission to film inside the abandoned prison.
Sky-high numbers of migrants are arriving on Italy's shores, and the country's far-right Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, is facing increasing pressure at home. Promises she made during her election campaign about curbing the number of arrivals appear increasingly empty, as our correspondent Giorgia Orlandi explains.
It looks like Giorgia Meloni's government is facing its first real crisis. Over 100,000 migrants, in fact, have arrived in Italy since the beginning of the year. That's according to Italy's Interior Ministry. And that's the highest figure ever recorded since 2017. And this year could begin to approach the all-time record of 180,000 migrants who arrived in Italy back in 2016. Giorgia Meloni's right-wing government came to power in part on pledges of a crackdown on people smugglers, but also to stem the flow of migrants arriving from North Africa. We know that the majority of these migrants are now arriving from Tunisia, where it cracked down on sub-Saharan migrants, but also good weather conditions are some of the reasons why so many migrants now decide to embark on the difficult journey. Now, opposition MPs have accused the Giorgia Meloni's government of a manifest failure in its management of immigration, even more so after Italy and the EU recently signed a memorandum of understanding with Tunisia, which provides over 100 million euros worth of direct EU aid to prevent migrants from reaching Europe. Giorgia Orlandi for Euronews in Rome.
The opening in India of the first ever World Health Organization summit focusing on traditional medicine. The agency says these treatments are the first port of call for millions of people worldwide, and that the two-day gathering aims to collect evidence and data to allow for their safe use. WHO Chief Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says this should be used to inform policies, standards and regulations for their safe, cost-effective and equitable use. The gathering takes place alongside a meeting of G20 health ministers.
The British Museum in London has fired a member of staff after items dating back as far as the 15th century BC were found to be missing, stolen or damaged. The artefacts included gold, jewellery and gems of semi-precious stones. The museum has launched an independent review of security and said efforts were underway to recover the missing items. It added that legal action would be taken against the dismissed staff member and that the matter was being investigated by London's Metropolitan Police Service. Excavators in central France have started digging for the remains of dozens of German soldiers said to have been executed by resistance fighters during World War II. Local authorities said in July that a potential mass grave had been found near Maymak in the department of Corrèze. It came to light after a 98-year-old former resistance fighter went public with claims of the killings.
Die Zeitzeugen, die haben uns diese Stelle gezeigt. Das Georadar hat diese Fläche befahren und sagt, hier sind so Anomalien in der Erde. Und es kann sein, dass dies sagt, hier ist ein Grab. Und wir überprüfen das jetzt.
Nous avons lancé des recherches qui maintenant sont sous la forme de fouilles, d'exhumation. Nous recherchons 36 corps. Si on se réfère en tout cas aux témoignages, notamment d'Edmond Réveil, qui parle de 47 corps, mais 11 ont déjà été exhumés à la fin des années 60. 36 corps, dont 35 de soldats allemands et une personne qui serait une femme de la collaboration.
If successful, the excavation would allow the bodies of these German soldiers to be exhumed, says the mayor of Maymak. France's National Office for Former Fighters and War Victims is leading the dig in cooperation with Germany's War Graves Authority. The excavations are set to last until the 27th of August.
An Iranian filmmaker and his producer are reportedly facing prison after showcasing their film Layla's Brothers at the 2022 Cannes Film Festival without their government's approval. Director Saeed Rustai and producer Javed Nourezbegi entered the film for the Palme d'Or competition. Etimad newspaper reported that Tehran's Revolutionary Court sentenced the two men to 6 months in prison over creating propaganda against the system. They've also been banned from making films.